21.83 seconds. That's the time that ended a 12-year American drought in the fastest, most glamorous race on the track, the women's 200 meters at the Olympic Games. No American woman had stood on top of that podium since 2012. Not one. For 3 straight Olympic cycles, the deepest sprint program on the planet kept coming up empty in its own signature event. World titles, relay medals, headlines, everything except this. Everything except the one race that actually closes the loop. When Allyson Felix, the most decorated woman in track and field history, the last American to win this exact race, heard what this athlete was about to attempt in Paris, she didn't wait for the race to happen. She sent her a message before she ever left for France. We will get to what she said, and why it mattered more than any pep talk a coach could have given. But first, you need to understand exactly how loaded this race actually was. Because 21.83 seconds doesn't just mean a gold medal. It means going through a reigning Olympic 100-meter champion who is chasing the sprint double that same week. It means outrunning 2 other Americans in the same final and a 2-time world 200-meter medalist from Great Britain standing 3 lanes over. This wasn't a soft field. This wasn't a rebuilding year for the sport. This was the best sprinters alive on the single biggest stage the sport has to offer. And Gabby Thomas did it as a Harvard-trained epidemiologist that the sport had never quite figured out what to do with. Atlanta, Georgia, then Florence, Massachusetts, a small village tucked inside Northampton. The kind of place nobody pictures when they imagine a future Olympic sprint champion. Her mother relocated the family there in 2007 to take a teaching job at UMass. Fresh off finishing a PhD of her own, Gabby Thomas grew up playing soccer and softball first. Track wasn't the plan. It became the plan the day she sat at her grandmother's house and watched Allyson Felix race the 200 meters on television during the 2008 Olympic trials. Thoughtful, a 9-year-old girl watching a woman fly around a curve, having no idea she was watching her own future. She enrolled at the Williston Northampton School, not a sprint factory, not a pipeline school pumping out Division I recruits every year, just a New England prep school with a math teacher named Martha McCullough who also happened to coach track on the side. By her senior year, Thomas held the school records in the 100, the 200, the long jump, the triple jump, and the 4x100 relay, every single one of them set in the same year, 2014. At a school nobody in elite sprinting circles was watching, because nobody had a reason to. Then came the recruiting twist nobody saw coming. The offer wasn't from a track powerhouse in the Sun Belt or the Pac-12, the places that actually produce Olympic sprinters. It was from Harvard. Here's what almost nobody outside the sport realizes. Ivy League sprinters essentially do not become Olympic champions. The conference doesn't have the funding, the weather, or the recruiting pull of the traditional NCAA sprint powers. Invex in the South and West. It's built for academics first, and everyone in track and field quietly knows it. So when Thomas won the NCAA indoor 200-meter title during her time at Harvard, she didn't just add a trophy to a shelf. She became the first sprint champion in Ivy League history. Not the 10th, not the 5th, the first ever in the history of the conference. And she was carrying a full academic course load in neurobiology and global health while she did it, at a school that has never once built its athletic identity around track speed, and never will. In October 2018, she made the leap the sport barely acknowledges as a real sacrifice. She signed with New Balance and turned professional, walking away from her final year of NCAA eligibility at Harvard to chase this full-time, with no guarantee any of it would work. Then, the setbacks started stacking up in a way that would have quietly ended most careers before they even started. In 2020, the Athletics Integrity Unit provisionally suspended her for missing 3 drug tests within 12 months, a case that was fully investigated and resolved that same July, but one that still cost her months of uncertainty during a critical Olympic build-up year. Then in 2021, an MRI turned up a tumor on her liver in the middle of her Olympic preparation. It came back benign. She kept training straight through the scare without missing her shot at Tokyo. The message the sport quietly sends an athlete built this way is never delivered in one clean rejection letter. It's delivered slowly, in recruiting rankings that never had her near the top, and in a resume that reads more like a pre-med application than a professional sprinter's file. And then comes the part of the story that changes everything about how you should read that resume. After Harvard, Thomas moved to Austin, Texas, to train under Tanja Buford Bailey with a training group known as the Bailey Bunch, one of the only professional track groups in the entire country made up of and led entirely by Black women. That move meant leaving behind whatever institutional comfort the Ivy League had offered and building an entirely new life around a training group with none of the backing of the traditional NCAA sprint factories she'd never come from in the first place. She still didn't stop being a student. In 2020, while training full-time for a delayed Olympics with a pandemic reshaping every single part of the sport, no fans, no normal competition schedule, no certainty the games would even happen, she enrolled in a master's program in epidemiology at the University of Texas Health Science Center. She finished it in May 2023 with a capstone research project on the epidemiology of sleep, written during the same years she was setting personal bests on the track. That detail right there is the whole story, if you want to understand who this athlete actually is. This is a woman who, instead of picking between two demanding paths, simply refused to choose one. Training at an Olympic level and finishing a public health master's degree in the same stretch of years most professional sprinters spend doing absolutely nothing but sprinting. Then in 2022, everything threatened to fall apart. She tore her hamstring just weeks before the US Championships, missed the World Championship team entirely, and finished 8th in the 200-meter final at Nationals. A result that, for a moment, genuinely looked like it might define her career instead of being a footnote in it. Drop it in the comments right now. Does a hamstring tear and an 8th place finish end a story like this, or does it just delay it? Hold that answer in your head. Because what happened next didn't just answer the question, it erased it completely. 21.83. That's the raw number. Her winning time in the Paris 2024 Olympic 200-meter final. Let it sit there for a second. That's the number that made her, for the first time in her entire career, an individual Olympic champion. 21.83. Now here's what that number means against her own personal history. That gold medal time wasn't even her personal best. 3 years earlier, at the 2021 US Olympic Trials, Thomas had run 21.61, a time that, at that moment, was the second fastest 200 meters ever run by a woman, trailing only Florence Griffith Joyner's 1988 world record. Sit with that. She won Olympic gold in Paris, running a time slower than the best she had already proven she had in her legs years earlier. 21.83. Now here's what it means against the greatest performances the sport has ever produced. Griffith Joyner's 1988 world record still stands at 21.34, untouched for almost 4 decades. Shericka Jackson's 21.41 run at the 2023 World Championship sits second all-time. Thomas's own 21.61 from 2021 sits behind those two. Put every great 200-meter runner who ever lived on the same start line, and this Olympic champion isn't even the fastest woman in her own career, let alone in the history of the event. And she still walked away from Paris as the gold medalist. Because on that single night, against that specific field, under that specific pressure, she was simply the best one standing at the line. Think about what that actually means. Let it land for a moment. Winning an Olympic gold medal without touching your own personal best isn't luck, and it isn't an accident of a weak field. It's the ability to deliver exactly what one race demands on the one night it counts the most, regardless of what the clock says. Say it plainly, not the fastest 200-meter runner in her own training group, not the fastest American of the decade, 4th fastest woman in the entire history of the event, and still, on the night that mattered most, an Olympi. C champion. Pause. Here's the fact that puts Paris in a completely different category, and it deserves to be said plainly because the fact carries its own weight without any exaggeration needed. Before Thomas crossed that line in Stade de France, the last American woman to win Olympic 200 meters gold was Allyson Felix in 2012 in London. 12 years. 3 full Olympic cycles, an entire American sprinting generation that produced world champions and relay gold medals in bulk, but never once closed out this specific race on this specific stage. 3 days later, Thomas added the 4x100-meter relay gold. Then, the 4x400-meter relay gold run in the second fastest time ever recorded for that event. 3 gold medals, 1 Olympics, a feat that, by multiple athletics outlets accounting, puts her in the company of only a handful of American sprinters in history to do it in a single Games: Florence Griffith Joyner, Wilma Rudolph, Valerie Briscoe Hooks, and Allison Felix herself. That is not a small fact. That is a historic fact, and it puts this performance in a completely different category than very good sprinter has a great meet. So what actually happened right before the race that decided 12 years of American history in this one event? Not a scripted pep talk, not a highlight reel speech built for our cameras. Before Thomas ever left for Paris, Allison Felix, the childhood idol she'd watched on a television at her grandmother's house 16 years earlier, sent her a simple message: inspired. In Thomas's own words, Felix told her she already knew how to do this, that she had done it for years herself, and that she should go out, have fun, and show the world what she had been working on. Thomas has said that was exactly what she needed to hear going into the biggest race of her life. Not a rivalry resolved, not a doubter silenced, just the woman who taught a 9-year-old what this event could look like, quietly telling her successor that she was ready. Los Angeles 2028 is 2 years away. Thomas will be 31 years old, deep into her prime for this event, on American soil, in front of a home crowd for the first time in her Olympic career, trying to become the first woman to defend this specific title back-to-back since Felix herself won it in 2004 and very nearly repeated it in 2008. So here's the binary question. Does Gabby Thomas defend her 200-meter title on home soil in Los Angeles, or does the deepest sprint field in a generation finally catch up to her? Drop your answer below, and if you want the full story of the night Shericka Jackson ran the second fastest 200 meters in history and what it meant for every sprinter chasing her ever since, that video is coming next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.